There was a fly in the room. He threw his pencil straight up and fluffing skewered the fly and the pencil got stuck in the ceiling. It was those really weak plaster tile things, but it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I wish I could go back in time and record it. Or, one girl screamed, I just wanted to fluff, randomly in class. A little short blonde girl with a really high-pitched voice read a poem she wrote about how death is unescapable and everyone will die. It wasn't in class, but during our high school's variety show my senior year. This quiet guy who typically sat in the back of class and didn't really chat it up with anyone played the most epic guitar solo ever. It was amazing. Still remember it 10 years later. The quiet kid in my class was sorta bullied by this kid who had a cleft chin. One day the cleft chin guy insulted the quiet kid, and the quiet kid came back with the insult, is your mouth so filthy because someone fluffed you in the chin? Quote. It was 6th grade and the whole table, we were seated as groups, busted out laughing. It was a dirty joke. So check. And it was aimed at a bully. Double check. He became known as the chin-fluffed kid, which was hilarious to us 6th graders. Classmates used to throw crumpled paper balls at her every day because they knew she wouldn't react. One day she started picking them up, spitting on them, and throwing them back. The teacher just smiled and watched. Edited to add context. The teacher was no nonsense and regularly yelled at and gave detention to those garbage kicker kids. But, being garbage kickers, none of that ever stopped them this year, so when quiet girl decided to step up, he just let her do her thing. Sorry if this is anticlimactic. It was something that was a lot better if you went through it. There was a quiet kid in my class, and he always got up 5 minutes before class ended every day. Like to the exact second. One day, he got up 20 minutes before class and I garbage you not. The whole class gasped. When the teacher asked him where he was going, he responded, I need to go check my blood sugar a little earlier today because I'm going home early to visit Disney. Kid was so quiet, no one even knew he was diabetic. He didn't mention it ever. Lol. One time we had a huge man for a guest speaker, and when he arrived he was eating a foot long and his excuse was he missed breakfast, and the quiet kid muttered, I fluffing doubt that, almost exactly like from Trailer Park Boys. We're in health class, on the topic of domestic abuse. Somehow the subject turns to how Britney Spears received backlash for abusing her kid's kid in the back says. Probably because she hit her baby one more time. Our geometry teacher was bragging about how Ellie drew circles and going on about how one day he would draw a perfect circle. He asked us what would happen if he drew a perfect circle. My friend, a sweet, quiet girl says rather loudly, you die. Can't really remember the reaction of the class, but I laughed and the teacher looked totally crushed. I'm tired of this garbage, while unzipping his backpack. Mean girl told quiet friend she was going to beat her up in the parking lot the next morning. Half jokingly I said, grab that female doggy by the hair and feed her some uppercuts. Quote. Next morning I pull in and lo and behold she's got the half-conscious mean girl by the hair and is absolutely destroying her. Realized I never told her when to stop and jumped out of the car and broke it up. The dorky short pudgy kid was being bullied by the really popular class jock. Dork rushed the jock, pulled his shirt over his head and began beating him pretty good hockey style. The jock actually transferred schools the next year. Not sure if it was because of that or what, but he wasn't popular anymore. A girl that used to sleep during class went to the director office because there was too much noise. In our philosophy lecture, next class right after she started sleeping and the quiet kid woke her up and warned her he wasn't going to let her sleep ever again. Legit. Sell drugs. He was the typical quiet, good kid who always made good grades. He was also the best drug dealer at our school. Since all the teachers saw him as this innocent angel, he never once got caught. One kid would be able to have super quiet phone conversations with his mom during class. Everyone right next to him would know he was on the phone, but the teacher and the rest of the class had no idea. Granted, these weren't long convos, but they were still hilarious to witness. In college, my friend Harry was the quiet kid, but one day, in the dead silence, he randomly said, "Oh, if I were a turtle." The quiet kid said nothing, and in many ways that's the best thing he ever could have said. Quiet kid in summer school was being constantly bullied by the loud asshat kid behind him. Asshat calls the quiet kid a very uncool name. Without missing a beat and in the flash of a second, kid spins, sticks a pencil completely through the guy's hand and sits back front ways. It was so quick we were not even sure it happened, except for the pencil stuck in the other guy's hand and the screaming and blood. When I was in kindergarten, we had a buddy system to help us make friends easily. I have always been an extrovert, so I was paired with most introverted quiet kid in my class. He barely spoke, but for some reason I liked him and we played together often. My father got transferred to a different state that year, so I had to go as well. He was pretty sad when I told him, and when I was leaving I gave him a Chinese yen coin that I used to play with. Story till here is what my parents told me. I have almost no memory of this except for the coin. 7 years later, I was in 6th grade and my dad had just gotten transferred to a different state again. I was short and chubby back then, and I used to get picked on by the class bullies. I expected it to be better when I moved, so I was pretty happy. When I started at my new school, it was basically the same thing all over again. Just different bullies doing the same thing. We had lunch breaks out in the open, and during one such lunch break, I tripped while I was walking and bumped into one of my bullies and made him drop his lunch. You guessed it right, they were not happy. They ganged up on me and started shoving me pretty hard. Thankfully the break was over, so they stopped and headed back to class. Little did I know they planned to humiliate me in class. They planned to pour water on my pants as I was entering the classroom and were gonna spread the rumor that I had peed my pants. When I was about to enter, thought someone came from inside the classroom and stood between me and the bully and took a splash of water to his side. Turns out this guy heard them talk about it and decided to act on it. The guy who got splashed was the same quiet guy from earlier. He didn't know who I was, and neither did I at first. I found out later when I saw the yen with him. He had his mom stitch it to his backpack. World is a small place indeed. Beat the garbage out of the kid that kept poking, touching, slapping at him. I think it was around the 7th time he said, "Dude, please stop," before the blood came. I used to be the quiet kid who didn't say much in class. I was also known as the one girl who was pretty good at drawing. I don't know if this would be considered the best thing I ever did, but I do remember something I am somewhat proud of. For my 11th grade English class, we read through Shakespeare's Macbeth, and the project for that module was a creative project that incorporated the themes of the play. 2 of those themes were internal, external hell, and torture. For some reason, we had to present our projects to the class. So, my 11th grade self decided to take all the characters in Macbeth and draw them as tortured spirits, connected to a specific medieval torture method. So, Macbeth was drawn with a prisoner's collar, a device that was used to prevent sleep just like he was deprived of in the play. Banquo was drawn with a heretic's fork, a device that was used to prevent a person from talking, just like how Banquo was killed in order to guarantee his silence, etc., etc. I got an A+ on that project, but the presentation of it to the class certainly earned me a few stares. Whoops. It was me. I didn't say anything. Please, move on. There was this Chinese dude who was pretty low-key, and one day this man jumped at a Chinese move and slapped a bee and killed it. He was respected after that day. Slapped a bee barehanded. Does it count if I was the quiet kid? BC I accidentally roasted a classmate, which made my teacher lose her garbage and laugh hysterically for like 5 minutes. Professor was talking about the personalities of different cities and says something like, some cities have a lot of personality and talk a lot. Some cities whisper. And some cities don't seem to be saying anything at all. At which point this quiet kid who had never uttered a word says, almost under his breath, Topeka. That was all. Kid, I had some feelings about Topeka, Kansas. Okay, so I'm the quiet kid basically. And once I screamed at a girl in my class, in front of everyone. BQs, we got into an argument about whether it was an equilateral triangle or not. It was. And I got proper mad about it. LMAO. I guess you had to be there. Quiet kid in my theater class. There for the crew type jobs. Our teacher asks us questions daily. And the day's question was, what's your favorite Easter candy? Or normal candy if you don't celebrate? Quote, one kid said chocolate bunnies. And the teacher asked what they liked it filled with. Kids chimed in with stuff like peanut butter or marshmallow cream. Quote, but this girl just says organs in the most monotone voice imaginable. I am that quiet kid. I've told this story before, but not to Reddit. I always wear this big pair of headphones. And one day I was just letting YouTube autoplay music. It turned to Pumped Up Kicks. I don't listen to the song, but the autoplay had gone to Stranger Places. I decided I didn't want to listen and tried to grab my phone out of my pocket to change it. The cord snagged and was ripped out as the phone fell. For whatever reason the song played out loud now, as it does sometimes, but it stopped after 2 seconds. I grabbed the phone and everyone was now staring at me. The quiet girl wearing mostly black including a hoodie and headphones, was listening to Pumped Up Kicks in their eyes. People were real friendly for a few days after, and I didn't realize why for some time. Quiet kid was making bad grades and teacher was female dogging him out in front of everyone. Kid replies, I really don't care. Not at all. First thing I've ever heard him say. Teacher was beaten. She sat down in her chair, probably considering his true potential if she keeps snagging him. My final year of English class in high school. I live in the UK by the way, so I was 16. Was super tight-knit. We had running jokes and everyone kinda left everything at the door with regards to cliques and garbage. So at the end of the year the teacher gave out awards. And the quiet kid got the award for saying a grand total of 4 words in the whole 2 years we were there. However, a bit of a follow-up from that is that shortly thereafter we dated for a short while. And she was incredibly talkative, which was very strange because I had only talked to her once or twice in the 5 years of secondary school. So Courtney, if you're out there, say more garbage cause you're pretty cool, and #X200B. Not that anyone asked, but I thought it was funny to add that my award was to Batsy for saying the most inappropriate thing at the most inconvenient time to the most unsuitable person, which was almost the polar opposite of Courtney's. My friend was the quiet kid in high school drafting class. Back when drafting was done on paper, there was another kid harassing him from across the room. He took his T-square, about 2 feet long, made of wood, sharp edges, and whipped it across the room, hitting his harasser square on the side of the head. The resulting head wound required several stitches. An obnoxious dude is bragging about how he got the best BJ from this really hot female doggy, and says he recorded it. Quiet kid says, well, you know what they say about fat chicks.